Hello everyone, welcome. In this video, we are going to take a look how we can implement SwiftUI navigation with UI navigation controllers. So we are going to be building all our application with SwiftUI. So all our views are going to be 100% SwiftUI. But as you may know, the SwiftUI navigation and presentation is not perfect because we have to do presentation and navigation implementations right in the view. And also the APIs are not so nice. Like we cannot initialize some dependencies only when they are needed. Sometimes we have to declare them earlier just to declare to the SwiftUI view that what is the navigation destination or presentation destination. Although with iOS 16 there are some improvements to the navigation stack, but I think it's still nice to keep the navigation and presentation logic outside of the SwiftUI view as well. So we can achieve that by using UI navigation controllers. And in this video, we are going to see how we can do that. So I'm here creating a new project. I'm selecting app and say next. And let's name it Swift UI navigation with UI navigation controller. I mean, it doesn't matter what you name it. Next, and I'll create it. So it's a storyboard based project. I did it on purpose because in order to be able to use UI navigation controllers and control our window and all the navigation and presentation, we need to have the scene delegate here. So the application needs to be based on the storyboard approach initially. But of course, we are not going to be using storyboards, and all of our views will be in SwiftUI. So we can delete the main.storyboard. We can also delete the default view controller. And when we delete the storyboard, we also need to delete some configuration settings. So if we search for main here, you see there are some values here. For example, here, you search for main, you see the UIKit main storyboard file base name is main, but we don't want that, so we just click on it and delete it. And also in the info plist, the storyboard name is main. We will delete that as well. It's about the scene configuration. So we don't have any storyboard for our configuration. That means we will configure our window, our scene ourselves. Okay, so now let's create a module with a simple view. And for this video, I will be using MVVM-C, model VUV, model coordinator, because I really like how it plays out in a SwiftUI application where we use the UI navigation controllers. So I've also talked briefly about the architecture itself, but it's not going to be focus of the video. So let's click here and right click, new group. Let's say main module. And here we are going to create three entities. We will create a SwiftUI view, we will create a view model, and we're going to create a coordinator. We won't have a separate file for model because it's a simple application with no model. But if needed, you could also create some models as well. So let's right click on it, new file, SwiftUI view, and let's call it main module view. Okay, so we can delete the preview for the sake of this example. We don't need it. And in the body, we can say main module. Okay, so now let's create a view model, main module view model. It's going to be pretty simple, and especially right now it's going to be empty, but soon we will add some methods to it. So main module view model, and let's come here and say this view needs to be initialized with a view model. I mean, most probably in your applications, when you create this module, your view model needs to conform to observable object because you're going to be keeping your business logic or state of your view in your view model. And in that case, the view model from the view would be observed object. But for the sake of this example, we won't be updating our state. So that's why it's just a simple view model here. And then let's create a new file. Main module coordinator. So coordinator is going to be responsible for building the view, building the module, and then also it's going to be responsible for presenting or pushing new views into the UI navigation controller step. So let's declare it as a final class, main module coordinator, and it's going to have a make view function that will return a UI view controller. So let's import SwiftUI here already because we're going to need it soon. And in the make view, we come here and we're going to configure our module. So we create our view model first. Then we create our view, main module view, and inject the view model there as well. So okay, in order to be able to use our SwiftUI view with the UI navigation controller, we need to wrap it inside the UI hosting controller. So let's do that. You can say let hosting VC equal to UI hosting controller, with the root view being our view, and we will return hosting VC. Cool. So now we build our make view function, which builds our module and returns it to the outside world, wherever it may be needed. And this coordinator is also going to need navigation controller in order to be able to push other stuff later on. So let's declare it private weak variable navigation controller, type of optional UI navigation controller. And let's write the initializer for it as well, xcode autocompletes, but we don't want to have the nil as a default parameter. So you might be wondering why the navigation controller is weak. So let's have a look at it here. I have some diagram here for you. So in MVVM-C, what happens is the coordinator creates the whole module, right? So if the coordinator keeps a strong reference to UI navigation controller, and UI navigation controller also has a child view controller, which is a UI hosting controller, and then UI hosting controller keeps a reference to its root view, and then its root view is our SwiftUI view, keeps a reference to view model, and our view models keep a reference to coordinators via closures, which I will show you a bit later on. This is how the coordinator is kept in memory as well. So if coordinator also keeps a strong reference to UI navigation controller, this will result in a retain cycle. That's why this arrow here is green. That means this reference should be weak. Okay, so we have the weak navigation controller that needs to be injected into this coordinator when it's initialized. Okay, so now main module is going to be our first view, and we want to be able to show that in our app. But we also need to create a navigation controller because we want to use our navigation controller for navigation, right? So now let's create a new file that provides us a navigation controller for our app. So imagine you have an app that has different navigation controllers. Maybe you have a top bar controller with multiple child navigation controllers. So it would be nice to have a method provider, like a navigation controller provider, that gives you the your customized navigation controller. So let's right click on this folder and new file. Let's say app navigation controller provider. There won't be any state or something. It's just going to create a navigation controller and return it to us. That's why it can just be an enum. I'll copy the name from the comment here with a static function that returns a UI navigation controller. So let's import UIKit and static func make navigation controller. Return type is a UI navigation controller. In here, you're going to declare navigation controller is UI navigation controller. And we can also set its navigation bars prefers large titles to true as well. And we can return it. Okay, so now we will be interacting with this component to get our navigation controller. So let's now go to scene delegate, right? I mean, we create our main module, but we don't have a way of showing it into the application yet. So in order to do that, here we come to will connect to session method of the scene delegate. By the way, if you have an existing SwiftUI application, that doesn't have scene delegate, but you want to convert it later on, you can search online how to do that, and you will be creating your own scene delegate. And from then on, you can continue with the configuration we are now doing now. Yeah. So now guard let window scene is equal to scene. Otherwise, we return. And now we're going to create a let a window. It's going to be UI window with the given scene. And now we need to set the initial view controller, the root view controller of this window. So let's get the navigation controller first. So let navigation controller. It's going to be app navigation controller provider, and you're going to ask for a navigation controller. So once we get that, now we can say let's main view. It's going to be equal to main module coordinator, and we will inject our navigation controller. And then we're going to call make view on it. That will return us the UI hosting controller. So now we have our view, we have our navigation controller. So let's set the view as a child view controller of the navigation controller. So we're going to call set view controllers. Takes an array of view controllers, and we will provide the main view inside an array. And we don't want to animate this. Okay, so now our navigation controller is set up, but we need to attach it to our window. So we need to say window.rootViewController is going to be equal to navigation controller. And then we're also going to call make key invisible to make sure that our window is visible and the key. And we can also assign that window to our window in the scene delegate. All right. So now with this setup, we should be able to see our first view appearing in our simulator. So I'm going to run the project now. And you will see that our first view, main module view, is appearing with the main module view's body text. So yeah, it's going to take a bit while to run. Okay, great. Now, as you can see, we have the main module text here appearing. So we could configure our scene with the correct navigation controller and the main module. Cool. So now, actually, we are done with the setup. Now the interesting part is coming, like how we manage the navigation with these coordinators, right? So let's create another page, a detail page where we can go from the main module view, and there we can see how we can interact with the navigation controller. Also, you might be wondering, like the coordinator doesn't keep a reference, like a strong reference to navigation controller. How is it going to be in memory? I mean, because it will be in memory, of course, because we will be setting that navigation controller as the root view controller of the window. So the UI kit, the window, will take care of keeping it alive as much as it needed. And for the lifecycle of this application, it's always going to be there. So, okay, let's create a new module. I'll right click here, new group, detail module. Similarly, we will create 3 files. I'll create them quickly. So, file, detail, view, struct, detail view, type of view. But of course, we import SwiftUI. In here, again, let's provide a text saying detail module. Let's create a view model as well to be consistent. I mean, this module doesn't need a view model right now because nothing will happen. But let's create it to be consistent here. And then, yeah, I'm say final class. And then we go back to our view. We need to be injecting a view model to the view. And now finally, we will create a coordinator for this module as well. Detail module coordinator. Let's create it as well. Final class, detail module coordinator. As usual, the coordinators in my approach. By the way, MVVM-C is not done in only one approach. There are different approaches as well, with like main coordinators, child coordinators kept in memory. But that's not how I like it. I just like my coordinators to belong to their own modules, and they are kept alive by their view models via closures as long as they are needed. So they're pretty simple. Okay, let's create a make view function here as well. That will return the UI view controller here. So import SwiftUI. And then here, you're gonna initialize our module again. Let view model, detail module view model, let view is equal to detail view, injecting the view model, and let hosting VC, VC stands for view controller, initialize the UI hosting controller with root view as our view, and we're gonna return that hosting VC from here. So as you can see, I'm not going to be declaring and injecting a navigation controller to detail module, because from detail module, we won't be going anywhere. So there is no need for it. But if we would need it, we could also initialize it with the navigation controller. Again, that will be a weak navigation controller to make sure we don't end up with memory leak. But we don't need that for this page. Okay, so now we created the second module. And let's implement going to second module from the first module. So from the first page to second page. So let's come to our view and let's add a button so we can press and do something when it's tapped, right? So let's create a VStack first. I will cut this text, create a VStack, add a spacing of 32. So add the text here and then I will say button with the action and label initializer. Action will come soon. And the label is going to be go to detail. Okay, now we have our button, but what we're going to do when it's tapped, right? So we need to let the view model know a button was tapped. So we need to add a method here. So let's come here and say function go to detail tapped. And then we can go back to our view and call it when the button is tapped. But again, now what's going to happen here, because it's empty, as I was saying, the coordinators are kept alive by the view model's closures, and they're interacted with when needed. So now we are going to see how we can implement that. So we're going to inject the closure here inside the view model. So I'll say private let on go to detail tab. It's going to be a closure that takes nothing and returns void. And now we're going to initialize it. And as you can see, we have this escaping automatically because this closure will be called at a later point. So now we come back to our main module coordinator. We need to inject the closure here, main module view model. Okay, so now we're going to provide a function here, the function to be triggered. We can declare it here and say private func push detail. And then we can provide push detail here directly. So this is actually subtle, but when you inject this here like that, it actually captures yourself here, which is the coordinator, strongly, but which is okay. That's what we want. So the view model should capture the coordinator strongly. Okay, now in the push detail, we're going to initialize the view of the second detail view by talking to its coordinator. So main coordinator will talk to its detail coordinator. So let's initialize the coordinator here. Detail module coordinator. Let's initialize the view from it. Coordinator.make view. And then once we have it, we're going to say navigation controller, push view controller, the view, animated true. Before we run the project, we need to go to the view model, and when the go to detail tapped is called, we're going to execute the closure. Okay, now we are in place and we should be able to go to detail page from the first page. So let's run it again. Okay, so now our main module is here, our button is here. When I tap on it, you can see the detail module is pushed. Cool, so now our views are 100% SwiftUI, but we are managing the navigation with UINavigationController. So we can even like set our title or our toolbar buttons from the SwiftUI view as well. So let's say the navigation title for this view can be main title. If we run it again, you will see the navigation title appears, and as you would expect. We can also configure our detail views navigation title directly, but here I'm going to show you a disadvantage of this approach. So unfortunately, this is not perfect. Like using the UI navigation controllers via hosting controllers helps greatly. Like I use it in my own applications and projects, but there are some hiccups like the one I will show you now. So let's say in the detail view, you say navigation title to be detail. So when I run it, you'll see a problem. So please pay attention to the title area as I tap on the Go to Detail button. As you can see, the title appears late because it's like some issue with the SwiftUI. Let me directly set the title from the SwiftUI view, and that view is pushed until the push animation completes. The navigation bar elements are not updated. Similarly, if you would add a toolbar here and the toolbar item here, placements, let's say top bar trailing, content could be a button. Let's say it's done. Similarly, if I run it now, the button will also appear late, similar to the title. As you can see, done button also comes later. So which may be something you're okay with, which is something I am okay with because it helps me to use SwiftUI with UI navigation controllers. But yeah, this is the issue that we have, that there's this delay happening. It can be fixed to some degree. For example, if we delete our toolbar and navigation title here and go to our coordinator of the detail module and set the title of the hosting VC as detail and run it again, when we set the title from the hosting controller directly, when I click on it, you see the title is already there. It's animated. So you can fix it for your titles, but when it comes to your buttons, if you want to create a subclass of your own UI hosting controller, provide your buttons there, and then somehow communicate back to your view model, it can be cumbersome and it can also be error prone because the UI hosting controller doesn't always act like a UI view controller when it comes to configuring the current navigation item. So this is the only disadvantage of this approach that I would like to show you as well. So it's good that you're aware of this before you make the decision. But as you can see with this approach, we can keep our views clean from the navigation or presentation logic. And even our view models don't have to worry about it thanks to using the coordinators, which you may not use, of course, depending on the architecture you choose. And all the navigation or presentation happens on the main module coordinator, sorry, the coordinators in general. Like we could just say here, instead of push view controller, we could say present as well. And if I run it, now it will present the detail, just like that. And then if any dependencies would be needed to provide it from the main module to the detail module, we could configure it in our view model, give it to our coordinator, and then in the coordinator, we would inject it to the detail module coordinator, set up the view accordingly, and present or push it. Of course, as you can see, if you present something and you just present UI hosting controller, there is no navigation controller. So if you want to also have a navigation controller in something you present or in a flow that you can push some other things here, similarly, as we did in the scene delegate, we could interact with our app navigation controller provider, ask it to provide us navigation controller, inject it into the detail module coordinator, and then for future usage, and then we would present that navigation controller as the detail view as its child. But it's a bit more details. It's out of scope for this video, but it's also, of course, possible. So in my experience, it scales nicely. And yeah, it also works fine with MVVM-C. So yeah, that's it. I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know what you think about it. And if you would like to know more about the MVVM-C approach, I can go into more details later on in another video. Or if there's some certain topic that you're interested, just let me know and perhaps we can make another video for that. So yeah, see you next time.